Hi everyone, our topic for week 8 maths is 2D shapes. This is Monday's lesson. And our learning intention for today's lesson is I can name and describe common 2D shapes and classify quadrilaterals. Alright, let's begin by remembering our common 2D shapes. Just a reminder that when we're talking about vertices, these are the corners of shapes or where two lines meet. So the corner is where two lines meet, are vertices. If you can watch this video on YouTube, it's going to go through all our basic shapes and talk about the properties of these shapes, such as how many sides and how many corners or vertices they have, things like that. Much better to watch the video than listen to me talk through all of the shapes, I think. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to fill in the grid for our common 2D shapes, and we're going to do the first one together. So square, total number of sides for our square is 4. We don't even need to count that. Everyone will know that one. Number of straight sides is the same answer, 4. Number of curved sides, a square has no curved sides. Number of vertices is 4. And lines of symmetry, let's have a look here. I want you to think about what the lines of symmetry are. We haven't done lines of symmetry, and we do that in a later PowerPoint. So if you're finding this part of the question tricky, lines of symmetry, you can leave this one out. That's okay, because we haven't done any learning on that yet until later in the week. But if you want to have a go, then you're welcome to have a go of completing this column, but you don't have to. But lines of symmetry, we can have one going from corner to corner there, one going from corner to corner there, one up and down there, and one across there. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 lines of symmetry as well. I think that's right. Let me just count to double check. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 lines of symmetry. And I want you to think there's a big correlation then between all of the properties of our square shape. So now it's your turn to fill in the rest of them for rectangle, circle, triangle, pentagon, and hexagon as well. And just a reminder on our previous slide, if you are not printing your worksheet, which is absolutely fine, you could write your answers straight into your Google Doc or write them onto a piece of paper and then upload a photo of it. You may like to draw the shapes to practice drawing a line of symmetry if you choose to do that part of the question, and you'll need to use a ruler or something straight for that. All right, let's move on now to have a look at what quadrilaterals are. So quadrilaterals, let's look at the special quadrilaterals. These are parallelograms, rectangles, rhombuses, squares, trapezium, and kites. So this is what we call these shapes here, special quadrilaterals. Quadrilateral means 4 sides. Quad means 4, and lateral means side. So I guess if you want to think about quad bike riding, how many wheels does a quad bike have? 4, and that's how we know quad means 4. A quadrilateral is a 2D shape that is closed with 4 straight sides. Quadrilaterals have 4 vertices with interior angles that add up to 360 degrees. And that is a really important factor to remember as you move into your upper primary years, thinking about what the angles add up to. You don't have to worry about that point just as much now, but I'm just pointing that out that that is important for our later learning. So the shapes below are all types of quadrilaterals. We have a parallelogram, which looks like a rectangle that's just been squished slightly, a rectangle, a rhombus, which looks like a square, but its sides are slightly different in length to a square. It's sort of like a squished square on a side again. A square, a trapezium, and a kite. All right, for our activity, what I need you to do is redraw the special quadrilaterals that we just spoke about in the previous slide and that are on this slide here. So you need to use a ruler or something with a straight edge like a book. And I want you to then name them. So if you can't remember the names of some of them, what you can do is go back to the slide before and pause the video to write them down. You don't have to have them all memorized, but drawing them and then writing the name down is what's going to help us remember what these special quadrilaterals are. And this is your optional activity for today. So it says the national flag of Nepal is the only flag in the world that isn't a quadrilateral. A quadrilateral is a 2D shape with 4 straight sides, which we just learned. See how many different quadrilaterals you can draw on the next page. And if we don't have a next page, you just need to do that on your own page. Remember to use a ruler. What you could also try to find out is what the flag looks like. So what does the Nepal flag look like? Which flag uses the most colours? So you could have a look at different flags of the world to see which one you think has the most colours and find out if flags ever change. So it's just a little bit of a interest-based research thing, and I think it ties in well with the work we've been doing with the Olympics as well, so looking at countries' flags. But the main part of this is to see how many different quadrilaterals you can draw and using a ruler. So just building up our practice of drawing shapes. This is Tuesday's lesson. And what we're learning to do today is identify parallel and perpendicular lines in shapes. All right, let's have a look at what parallel lines are. So parallel lines run alongside each other in pairs. So pairs means there's two of them, 1, 2. They would never meet if they carried on. So if these lines were kept drawing forever and ever, they would never meet or touch. They are always the same distance apart, and they are shown in maths with these arrows. So these arrows here are what tell me that these lines are parallel lines. Sometimes I guess you might see on a worksheet 2 lines and you might think, oh, are they parallel lines or not? And remembering that if the arrows are on them will really help you to know if they're parallel lines or not. Let's have a look at what perpendicular lines are. So perpendicular lines are pairs of lines that meet at a right angle. They are usually marked by using the right angle symbol at the point where they meet. So this part here is a marking that we use to indicate right angles. And what they're saying is perpendicular lines are a pair of lines that meet at a right angle. So we can see that this line here is going down, 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 and meets this line here, which is going across. So when these two lines meet like this, we call them perpendicular lines. And just like in the slide before, we had our arrows for parallel lines, we can put a little square in the corner like this to indicate it is a perpendicular line meeting to form a right angle. All right, this is our activity today. So it says straight lines that never meet and stay the same distance apart are called something. You need to fill in the blanks. What I'd really like it if you could do is rewrite these two sentences. It's like when we would be doing our work in our grid books and we might write some maths definitions down to help us remember. That's what this is doing here. So I'd like it if you could rewrite these two sentences here, and you might like to draw the little symbol like this for the perpendicular and the other symbol for the one up here. I won't say the word to try and trick you or challenge you. The next question says, write the number of pairs of parallel and perpendicular lines that you can see in each shape. Mark the right angles for the perpendicular lines. So if you're not printing this, that's absolutely fine. But what you can do is draw your triangle, your rhombus, and your other irregular shape here. And then you can draw on your symbols for parallel lines and perpendicular lines. And just remember as well, some of the shapes might not have any of those things. So some of the shapes might not have parallel lines, and that's okay. You would then just put 0. All right, we're going to continue with another couple of questions here. And what we're looking for in this first question is to really use our mathematical thinking, sorry. So this pentagon has no parallel lines. Can you explain or show on the diagram how you know? So maybe you could have a go of trying to pretend to draw on parallel lines and show me how that's wrong. Or you can just write a couple of sentences showing me your thinking. So it's just about getting me to see what's going on in your head and practice thinking mathematically to answer that question. The next question says, draw a picture of a house which has at least 3 pairs of parallel lines and 3 pairs of perpendicular lines. Make sure that when you draw your house and you draw these, you need to use the arrow symbols and the little square right angle symbol to identify your 3 pairs of parallel lines and 3 pairs of perpendicular lines. I look forward to seeing your picture. And the optional activity for today is drawing the picture using only parallel and perpendicular lines. So we wouldn't want to be seeing any circles in your picture because they won't have the parallel or perpendicular lines. You did draw the house for the previous activity, but the challenge of this is to think of something yourself to draw and come up with using parallel and perpendicular lines. This is Wednesday's lesson. All right, our goal and learning intention for this lesson is I can identify regular and irregular shapes. All right, so let's have a look at what regular polygons or regular shapes are. A polygon is a shape with straight sides. If all the sides are the same length, the shape is regular. Regular shapes have equal sides and equal angles. So you can see here we've got a triangle, and this type of triangle is called an equilateral triangle because all of its sides are equal. We have a square, a regular hexagon, a regular pentagon, a regular heptagon, and a regular octagon. So all of their sides are equal, so we call these ones regular of these shapes. Now let's have a look at irregular polygons or irregular shapes. So a polygon is a shape with straight sides. If any of the sides are different lengths, the shape is irregular. Irregular shapes have sides of different lengths and angles of different sizes. So you can see here now we've got 3 triangles, and the names of these triangles are isosceles, scalene, and right angle. You don't need to worry about the names of them, but it's a good bit of vocabulary if you want to know them. But what you need to focus on is noticing the fact that the sides of the triangle are all different lengths. They're not the same like the one before where they were equal. So these ones would be irregular triangles. We also have an irregular pentagon. So we know that it's a pentagon because it's got 5 sides, but it's an irregular pentagon because not all the sides are the same size. We have an irregular hexagon, an irregular octagon, irregular heptagon, and an irregular quadrilateral. All right, now it's your turn, so I want you to write down whether you think these shapes are regular or irregular, thinking about whether their sides are the same size or not, and thinking about what the shapes are. So you can write down the numbers 1 to 8 and then write the word regular or irregular next to them. Your next task is to choose 3 or more of the shapes from the table to redraw in different orientations. So for example, you might draw your rectangle straight or normal like the photo, then you might draw it in a vertical position like this, and then you might draw it into an angled position like this. However, even though it's moved into these different orientations, we know that this is still a rectangle. So you want to choose 3 of the shapes from this table here, or more if you would like to do more, to draw into different orientations like my example here. Make sure to use a ruler if you have one, or a straight edged object. And our optional activity for today is to make some of the regular and irregular 2-dimensional shapes or polygons from the previous slide using a variety of materials such as cardboard, straws, or pattern blocks. You can use anything that you have at home. You might like to draw your shapes outside with chalk. You might like to use something if you've got like a game board where they have the little piles or checkers that you can use to make something. You guys are way more creative than me. You've shown me that time and time again with these optional activities. So trying to make some of the regular and irregular shapes. Just remember though that we are doing 2D shapes, so you'll notice that all of these are sort of flat. They're not like a 3D object. This is Thursday's lesson, our last lesson of maths for the week. And what we're going to be focusing on today is lines of symmetry. So what is symmetry? An object, shape, or design can be said to be symmetrical if a line can be drawn through the middle such that the 2 halves are mirror images of each other. For example, a butterfly has symmetry if you draw a line down the middle of the butterfly, both sides would be the same. So if I drew a line down the middle here, oh, that was pretty good, only a little bit off. You can see that on both sides of the butterfly, the pattern is exactly the same. They've both got an antenna. They've both got these little dots here. A line of symmetry means on either side, the pattern is what's on either side is exactly the same. And like they said, it's a mirror image. So lines of symmetry can be horizontal, vertical, or diagonal. So we have our horizontal line here, our vertical line here going up and down, and our diagonal line here. And what's important to notice about the diagonal line is it's starting from one corner of the shape here and going to another corner of the shape here. So that's what's really important when you're going to be doing this activity today, is to make sure you join up from corner to corner on certain shapes, because if you were to do it from here to here, you can see that this line is not showing me symmetry because it's not the same on both sides. It's a different size. So when you use the corners to go from corner to corner, oh, that line was so straight. You can easily see the lines of symmetry there are the same on both sides. And here are some beautiful examples of symmetry in nature. So we have our flower that we could cut down the middle. We've got our deer, I think it is, with the ears on top being the exact same. Our beautiful shell. Snowflake is a great one, and a few other things in nature. Beautiful photos. And here's some examples of symmetry in architecture. So we've got a bridge down the bottom here. some different building patterns, stadium, different things, places you might see examples of symmetry in architecture, and architecture is like buildings. All right, so now it's your turn. Fill in the table to work out how many lines of symmetry are in each shape. You will need to draw the shapes and the lines. So you're going to write down yes or no. Does it have symmetry, yes or no? And just like I did in the slide before, you're going to draw your lines of symmetry on the shape. So that will require you to redraw the shape, or if you have printed the sheet, you can just use a ruler or straight-edged object to draw your lines of symmetry straight onto the shapes. But if you aren't printing it, that's fine. You just need to draw the shapes and then work out how many lines of symmetry for each. And our second activity I'd like you to complete today is draw and cut out an octagon. Fold your cut out to show as many lines of symmetry as you can. You may like to then draw over the top of your fold lines using a ruler or straight edge with the example below. So this person here has folded their octagon in half and they've created their line of symmetry and then they've drawn over the top of it. If you don't have any paper at home, I can suggest that you use like a cereal box to draw your octagon shape. Just remember that because this is a regular octagon, you'll want all of your sides to be the same size. So with a ruler or whatever you're using to measure, if you know that it's about so big or whatever, if you're using a ruler, you'll want to make sure that your sides are, for example, all 5 centimeters long. And it might take you a few goes to draw it. That's why I chose this shape, because it will be a little bit tricky. The other thing you can do is if you do have a printer, you're welcome to print out and cut out the octagon, but have a go of drawing one as well if you can. And if you do this activity quickly and you'd like to do some more, you can choose other shapes to draw and cut out and then fold. Or if you're finding the octagon really too tricky, what you can do is just do a more easier shape like a rectangle or something like that. So plenty of options here for what you can do with this activity, and I'm looking forward to seeing your work. And our final optional activity for the week is to find examples of symmetry in your home or environment around you and take some photos to share. So here's some examples here of the window symmetry, our IKEA cube and a dining table. So see what other lines of symmetry you can see around your home. Have fun.